so a little while ago I stopped sleeping on a futon. I was born and raised in Japan and I have slept on a futon I think for over 15 years for sure. But sleeping on a futon like laid out on the floor seems comfortable and it's likely a fresh experience that many people find interesting. But however, many Japanese people, especially the young generation, sleep on beds rather than futons. Alright, so in this video I will introduce the reason why I stopped sleeping on a futon, which I believe is similar to the reason why many Japanese people sleep on beds instead of futons. When I see or hear stories about foreigners sleeping on a futon at home, well, I realize that futons are somewhat special to many people, maybe like you, and that sleeping on the floor is an unusual and special experience. However, having been born and raised in Japan, it was natural for me to sleep on a futon since I was little, so just as sleeping on the bed holds no special meaning for you, but unfortunately sleeping on a futon at home, something like, nothing special for me. So therefore, after simply, comparing the pros and cons on futon and bed, I ended up deciding to stop sleeping on a futon. So what is cons about sleeping on a futon? Alright, so the first one is hardness of the floor. When sleeping on a futon, it's common to lay down on a mattress like this. Well, this is of course because the floor is hard with just a futon, and it can easily put a strain on your lower back and the shoulders. Well, naturally there is a big difference between having this mattress and not having it, but even with the mattress, it can't beat a bed. Bed have springs in them, and I feel that the softness and comfort provided by these springs cannot be felt with a futon or mattress, unfortunately. Well, also from the perspective of a good night's sleep, well, I think it's somewhat difficult to find a futon or mattress that suits your body. This is my guess based on my personal experience, but I think most people do not try to sleep on a futon or mattress before buying it. Basically, I think they look it up on the internet and choose a futon or mattress that seems to suit them. Well, by the way, the futon I used to use and the futon at my parents' house I usually use when I'm back to my hometown, also bought without being tried out beforehand. Of course, there is a possibility that futon or mattress will ultimately suit your body, but there might be something even better suited for you. Comparing this bed to a futon might be a little unfair to be honest, but considering that a futon is laid on the floor, and I think the bed generally provided relatively better comfort. Well, actually, I've been measuring the quality of sleep almost every day for the past 7 years, and the numbers show that the quality of my sleep has improved, since I started sleeping in a bed, compared to when I was sleeping on a futon. Of course, I also feel that my wakefulness and fatigue levels have improved after sleeping in a bed. Being comfortable when you sleep is really important. That is obviously the thing we really need when we decide sleeping on a futon or a bed, isn't it? Alright, so the second disadvantage is moisture and mold. When you lay a futon directly on the floor, it easily absorbs moisture from the floor. Especially during the rainy season or in humid areas. Well, actually it's rainy season in Japan now. The futon tend to retain moisture and the mold can easily grow. Yet again, Japan is particularly famous for its high humidity and the rainy season in June and July. So when using futon, the problem of humidity and the mold is always present. But to prevent mold from growing on futon, there is a daily task that must be done, which is putting away the futon, which is really such a pain for me. One of the advantages of using futon is that by holding them, you can freely use the space. As you can see, I have a bed there, so that space is that, always occupied by the bed. Now, of course, some people fold their futons for this reason, but one of the reasons Japanese people fold their futons daily is to prevent mold from growing. In fact, holding the futon every day is really tedious, as I told you. Well, in my case, there were days, to be honest, when I didn't do it because it was such a pain, as I told you. Well, additionally, to prevent mold from growing, it's important to frequently air out the futons. But airing out the futon is also really tedious. But of course, besides this, to prevent humidity, but using a dehumidifier or choosing flooring materials with good ventilation should also be concerned. While there are many things to take care of than you expected when sleeping on futons. The next is the cold. During the winter, the cold air from the floor directly reaches you, so the futon alone might not prevent sufficient warmth. Well, I use this oil heater, but I have oil heater actually like below the desk. But I still feel like colder sleeping on the floor compared to sleeping in the bed. But although don't sleep directly on the flooring, the futon is surrounded by the cold flooring. Therefore, you can feel the coldness more, to be honest. But personally, especially in winter, I feel that there are no advantages, to be honest, to sleeping on a futon compared to a bed. Moreover, without such heating equipment, it can be too cold to sleep, causing me to wake up in the middle of the night. One slightly unusual disadvantage is that it's difficult to read book on a futon for me because it doesn't have a backrest. Well, this might only apply to me, but as you can see, I have backrest on my bed. It's my habit to read a book before going to bed. When I'm sleeping on a futon, there is no backrest like there is with a bed, so making it very difficult to read a book. Well, however, as I told you, with my current bed, there is a backrest, so it's comfortable to read a book. It might not apply to many people, I know that, but for someone like me who has the habit of reading before bed, it's a very significant matter. So these are the main reasons why I put an end to the long period of sleeping on a Japanese futon on the floor and now sleep in a bed. Well, according to a survey, about 60% of Japanese people prefer beds, while 40% prefer futons. But in fact, even when I was little, there were hardly any of my friends who slept on the floor using a futon. Now, that we live in 2024, we are adult, I think most of my friends sleep in the beds for sure. Well, this is a complete stereotype, but it seems that those who still, sleep on futon on the floor in Japan are mostly elderly people who have tatami mat in their homes, and I believe young people hardly use them. Basically, one of the main reasons the number of people sleeping on futon is decreasing is because there are fewer houses with tatami mat rooms nowadays in Japan. But overall, I think it was a good decision to sleep in a bed instead of a futon. But of course, it doesn't mean that sleeping on a bed is always better for you. But of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, laying out a futon and sleeping on the floor feels better than a bed. It can also evoke special emotions for some people. There are also unique benefits to futons, such as not worrying about falling out of the bed and securing space in the room instead of the bed. But however, for me, it's probably enough to sleep on a futon occasionally when staying at a Japanese inn and feeling a sense of nostalgia. But I felt that for Japanese people like me who was born and raised in Japan, occasionally sleeping on a futon at such opportunities allows us to better appreciate the quality of futon. Well, please tell us your opinion or share special experience of Japanese futon if you have. Well, we also introduce other Japanese life in this video, so not only futons, but please also get to know other aspects of Japanese life. Well, thanks so much for watching. See you soon. See ya.